Well, I asked, where's the beef? Let's call this for what this is. Oh my God! They are so hopelessly woke. How dare you? That is the intellectual capital of the left today. Give me a break. You are now watching the Daily Roundup. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned into the Daily Roundup on this, Wednesday, March 15th, 2023. I'm David Menzies, and my co-host, well, let me tell you a little bit about my co-host. Do you know, folks, today is International Eat an Animal for Peta Day. I don't know if she'll be chowing down on beef, chicken, or lamb, but she'll be celebrating this day. She is the she-devil with a spatula. She is the Khaleesi of BC. She is Drea Humphrey. How are you, Drea?
I'm doing good. Always good following your intro, David. Always fun.
Well, I'm not, people think I make up these days. I go into a calendar database. This is something that's been around for 20 years, and the reason why they're jabbing the PETA people in the ribs, Drea, is based on two things. They're often ludicrous and hurtful ad campaigns. You might remember a while back, they compared people eating animals to the Holocaust during the Second World War. Absolutely outrageous. And also, I must
have been too busy eating a steak to catch that one.
Yes, that's right. And by the way, and this is the really dirty little secret that PETA doesn't want you to know, they talk about the ethical treatment of animals, but you know what? When it comes to walking the walk, their record is horrendous. In other words, at PETA shelters, their euthanization rate of dogs and cats and other critters is far greater than de rigueur animal shelters. So again, Drea, I think PETA right now is just a bunch of activists trying to come up with the latest ad campaign that really pisses off or offends people. But meanwhile, tangibly, they're doing nothing for animal welfare.
Well, where were they when, was it Australia that was killing puppies over COVID? And I think China did something similar. You didn't hear anything from them. Do you remember that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they were out of fear of them spreading COVID. So it was like, yeah, didn't hear anything about that one.
It reminds me, the town of Niagara on the lake in Ontario, Drea, we went there a couple of years ago, and they actually had signs posted requesting that you socially distance your dogs from other dogs due to COVID. I'm surprised they didn't ask people to mask up their dogs. But, it's we really lost our minds during COVID, didn't we, Drea?
We did. I remember my dog in the very beginning ran into my neighbor's yard, and we're like, is that okay? Like, what do you do? They're all together, and we're so scared. Yeah.
Well, Drea, I think at this point, you tell the folks what we're attempting to do, because wow, there is so much in the news today.
Yes, we've got a lot to discuss. Thanks for joining us. If you're just tuning in and you're not familiar with the Daily Rebel Live, we share the latest news with you, and you get a chance to join us. If you go on Rumble or Odyssey, there is a fun live chat option. If you donate $5 or more, kind of like what you're seeing on the screen, we take a chance to read that and just hear what you have to say about what we're talking about. And it also contributes to supporting our journalism because we are completely viewer funded. So it's a fun way to support us and for us to get to know you.
100%. And I guess we should start, Drea, with some breaking news. Unbelievably, Calgary City Council, am I reading this right, Drea? They're passing a second bylaw against drag show protests. So, we have the right for freedom of assembly and free speech and freedom of the press, well, ostensibly. But when it comes to this crazy woke mayor in Calgary, she's going to pick and choose what you can protest against and what you cannot. I mean, we're going to run a video about Pastor Derek Reimer being issued a trespass notice. Oh my goodness, he was engaged in silent prayer. But Drea, this is obviously, I think, going to head to court, perhaps even the Supreme Court, because this is completely unconstitutional that a mayor of a municipality is going to tell you what you can and cannot say in the public square.
Well, and let's not forget, it's not just the mayor. This was voted. There was councillors involved too. It's awfully shocking. I think the penalty is something like $10,000 and up to 6 months in jail.
Yeah.
What happened to the right to peacefully protest? And again, it's about this hate. They always label it hate. There's no explanation, no black and white about what that is, and it's basically just anybody who goes up against the radical LGBTQ plus narrative. Of course, there are people within that community who also oppose these events. So it's awfully, honestly, I find it scary.
That's happening. A very good point to make, Drea, because just this morning when I woke up, the number one thing trending on Twitter was LGB without T. And basically, these are people, gay men, lesbians, bisexuals, that are saying, no, you know what? Time to divorce ourselves. There's some graphic going up. Time to let the transgender people, the transanity, to go its separate way, because we're not into grooming. We're not into drag queen shows for minors. We're not in, and when you think about it, I mean, one of our colleagues made mention of, it was a man who is identifying as a female and was hitting on a lesbian and was getting very miffed that the lesbian wasn't acquiescing to his sexual advances, and had to be told, I'm a lesbian woman. I like other women. I don't like fake women who are really men, right? So
I think that was me who was saying that, because I hear that all the time. And you're right. There are so many people in the LGB, and I would say the T community too, because I also know trans people who are against this. But the lesbians, the bisexuals, and gays, they're tired of their name, their community being hijacked to push these radical agendas against children of all people. Like, I don't even know why there's a debate over, let's just err on the safe side. Even if you think it's okay to do drag performances for kids, why aren't you erring on the safe side and go, you know what, it's kids. Let's just let it go. There's all this controversy about it. Maybe some of them are right. These are little kids we're talking about. So I always link it back to Black Lives Matter, because I felt very similar. You had, these people looting, destroying homes, all of this violence going on in the name of Black Lives Matter. And you had all these people saying, oh yeah, we're standing up for that because we're standing against racism. But really it was like, well, no, if you cared about Black Lives Matter, you would be saying, stop these, arrest these criminals. I think there was over 30 deaths involved with that. And of course it was mostly in Black owned businesses and homes and things like that. So it reminds me of that. You have this agenda that has all the names like love is love, and it's about courage, and it's about standing against hate in the name of the LGBTQ community. And they're just saying, enough is enough. We want out. This is not who we are. And I think what Sheila, our colleague Sheila, mentioned earlier is that, she says there's a theory, maybe the most homophobic people are the radical trans people, because you're right, they're not allowing them to be attracted to who they're attracting. But let's not forget that there are a lot of people, there's a lot of evidence to support that they are transitioning. People who would traditionally just be gay or lesbian, those teens are being transitioned into becoming trans. And perhaps if they had just gone, they would have just been gay or lesbian and not been sterilized, not been mutilized. So it's like, let's just get rid of the gays and lesbians.
It's astonishing. By the way, I want to pick up on the point you made about Black Lives Matter. That summer of 2020, Drea, when you had all that violence erupting in the aftermath of George Floyd's death. And what the mainstream media inconveniently did not really report on was the fact that so many of these demonstrations were in predominantly black neighborhoods in the U.S. So you had black-owned businesses, convenience stores, dry cleaners being torched. I remember it was such a heartbreaking video. It was a store owner, a black man, going to his store to open up, and it was just burning embers, and a tear is coming down his cheek. He's probably wondering, how do I make a living? How do I support my family? So tell me how having a war on ma and pa black businesses advances the fight against racism.
Yeah. And where did all the money go? Like, where did it go to helping Black Lives Matter? Actually, if you watch Candace Owens' documentary on that with the Daily Wire, you see that a huge amount, millions, went to the trans community, to the trans activists. What the heck is that about?
Wow. So, and a few mansions here and there. I believe even one is in Toronto. But you know what? Why don't we get back into this debate? Because one thing I think we both agree on, Drea, and I think if you're reasonable and if you believe in free speech, regardless of where you weigh in on the opinion, whether it's gun control, capital punishment, abortion, I'm thinking of the most contentious items, we would agree that you should be able, in the town square, to say your piece. And and also, if you want to counter-protest, that's fine too. We draw the line at violence, of course. There's no need for that. But the idea that a mayor and her fellow councillors would say, you can protest about that and that and that, but not this, and this. That is outrageous, regardless of what the issue is. So why don't we show that video of Pastor Reimer? I mean, this poor guy can't catch a break, getting a trespass notice for holding a silent prayer. Unbelievable.
Here, Reimer. Here, security officer with the City of Calgary has a trespass notice to serve you. You'll be trespassing for 30 days. Do you have any questions at this point? So that means you're going to have to leave City Hall itself right now. You can go out onto the sidewalk if you wish, or any public area.
May I ask, sir, why he is the only one that is being given a trespass notice, even though they are here collectively as a group?
I can't share that for privacy reasons right now. So.
At least he didn't ask for her ID.
During previous events too, on March 7th. You were also holding a prayer event inside the municipal complex interior without a permit. And today as well, you're holding a religious event inside the municipal building interior without a permit. You're being trespassed for 30 days. This is your trespass copy today. The appeal process is at the back, and you're more than welcome to appeal the process. Thank you. You can leave the building right now.
Look at how many officers are there. Like, is that necessary for silent prayer, trespass notice?
Unbelievable. Okay, Libby, we're okay with that. Yeah, so here's my point of view, Drea. Even if this is a law or a bylaw, here they are in City Hall. They are just crouched down, having a silent prayer. Even if, what I'm getting at is that they're not causing any kind of disturbance. These are not people shouting at the top of their lungs, coming, with a megaphone and scream. And by the way, that is de rigueur at Toronto City Hall. You have a small community of activists that come into council chambers in a meeting and scream and scream and scream. And because our city council is gutless, they acquiesce to the few dozen people in attendance making all this noise, as opposed to the majority that don't want their wackadoodle ideas to be approved. But if you were going to City Hall on business, Drea, and, I don't know, to get a parking permit, whatever it is, how is that impeding you? How is that disturbing you? I mean, and like you said, look at this. How many officers are there? Maybe 8?
It's ridiculous.
and they're armed. And I mean, I got to tell you, I've often said we've seen so much horrible policing in Canada over the pandemic, Drea. And I've often thought that the worst of the worst is the Montreal Police Service. But I'm telling you, my friend, Calgary is giving Montreal a run for its money.
Pastor Archer 2.0. I mean, yeah, there's something in the air in Calgary when it comes to, fiery pastors. And here you have one that's being very meek, just praying. And it's a really sad day in Canada to see that this is happening. And I don't know what's going on in Calgary because it's in the province of the free. It's our Texas, so it's like it shouldn't be happening. I hope that, thankfully our friends at the Democracy Fund are taking on the legal fight for Pastor Derek. And so if any of you want to get involved in helping out with the cost of that, you can go to savepastorderek.com. But I hope that we're going to see that this all gets dropped. But it really comes down to them wanting to teach a lesson. They don't want any more pastors like this or any more citizens coming up against this radical agenda to push sexual orientations on little kids. And, this is the aftermath of it. And look how many taxpayer dollars are going into that with that many officers showing up. And what are they thinking? Like, I wish I could hear their thoughts. I would like to think that they feel horrible for doing that. But perhaps I'm giving them too much credit. Perhaps since COVID, they're just numb when it comes to humans and how dehumanizing things have become lately.
I agree, Dre. I mean, I remember about a year and a half ago, there was a wife of a Toronto police officer who recognized me, a huge fan of the show. And she said basically at her husband's division, it's 50-50. 50% of the officers are absolutely appalled what they were being called to do, i.e. shut down peaceful protests, including, we caught it on camera, a man by himself at Yonge and Dundas, literally the town square, waving a Canadian flag, and he was gang tackled for that. So half are appalled and sickened by this, and she said, but the other half, they're all in. They love it. They've got that whack 'em and stack 'em mentality. They love getting the green light to brutalize people who are by no means criminals. And I want to pick up on something you said, because this is very important. And I have to admit, I don't have an inner knowledge of Calgary municipal politics. And if there are any viewers out there who do know who's who in the zoo and know the nitty gritty when it comes to Cowtown, please educate me. But the 2 years I spent doing journalism in Alberta, what I found coming from Ontario is that Alberta was easily the most American province in our Dominion. And like you said, it's kind of like what Texas is to the USA, Alberta is to Canada. And when I think of Calgary in particular, what comes to mind? Well, of course, the iconic Calgary Stampede, cowboys and steer wrestling and bronco busting. And the fact that these far left people get elected in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, of all places, it's staggering to me. I'd love to know how that, is it a matter of there's so many candidates on the right in municipal elections that they end up splitting the vote and somebody like Gondik gets up through the middle? And by the way, she is something else, Drea. Most politicians on the far left, they go about canceling your rights in a very sneaky fashion. She goes on Twitter to brag about it. Yeah, she is so happy about these constitutional infringements. But what's your take on how you end up with somebody like this mayor in Calgary in the first place?
Yeah, maybe it's a combination of what you said, too many candidates, but also it could just be, I don't know, because I'm not really involved in reporting on Alberta at all, but it could be just a lot of people who don't vote. I don't know. They just want to be left alone from the government so they don't get involved. I know that overall that is an issue with people who have certain concerns that tie in with conservatism a little bit better. But yeah, this is the history. The previous mayor was Mayor Nenshi, and right? Nenshi, is that how you say it? And I don't think he was much better. I remember him saying that the tiki torches that you could buy at Dollar Tree or Dollar Store were all of a sudden like symbols of you might as well been a Ku Klux Klan member if you had those out. So it's just like, I don't know how they're getting voted in, but they are.
Oh, Drea, Nenshi was horrible, but compared to Gondek, he comes across as a raving right winger. I mean, like, talk about the old saying, better the devil you know, right? And in case you're asking folks, what is she going to do for an encore? Oh, you'll be sorry you asked that question, because I see that the city of Calgary has just released a statement indicating it will allow men to access the women's washroom or change room in all of its facilities. Golly, Drea, what could go wrong with that policy?
Of course. We're already seeing what's going wrong with these policies. We're seeing it across Canada, especially in swimming areas. Why in swimming? Because that's where little girls and women are getting changed. So we keep seeing that happen, and now we're going to see it happen more. And I don't know, maybe soon you won't be able to protest that issue as well. You won't be able to go near swimming areas. I know that if you're protesting against abortion, you can't go near places. During COVID, they were saying you can't protest near medical places. So really, it's just soon you're not going to be able to protest in very many spaces. You're going to be off in an industrial complex talking to yourselves.
It's horrible. And to think that there are males and there are creeps out there that are part of my sex for sure. They're going to game this. They're going to go into bathrooms. They're going to go into female change rooms. And this is all being done under the auspices of trans rights and trans women are real women. There's another slogan for you. But you know what it really is, Drea? It's misogyny. You are declaring war on biological females to accommodate a percent of a percent of a percent, many of whom might be mentally ill. Hey, I'm sorry I said it, because I know that's the way it is. I bumped into these people at demonstrations time and time again. Once upon a time, when we had asylums, they'd be in a rubber room. Now they're being championed as
high suicide rates is also an indicator of high mental illness. So
and what I was going to ask you, I mean, like, Drea, you are obviously a biological woman. If a man came into a change room, say it's a pool change room, and you're in a state of undress, you're getting into your bathing suit and you're taking your clothes off, I can only imagine what you'd feel like. I mean, if you were somebody in my family, I'd hate that to happen to you. But how would you feel if a person who is clearly a male, i.e. his wedding tackle is still firmly attached, comes in and starts getting naked right beside you? I'm just guessing. I don't think you're going to be comfortable with that.
Yeah, well, obviously I would do a Rebel News report about it, but let's say I wasn't. I would be mortified, especially if you're maybe not kind of following all this, because let's face it, the state-backed media isn't telling too many people this side of things that is happening. So it would be quite shocking to see it firsthand. And I actually recently interviewed a mom who her child was changing in the Nanaimo Aquatic Center. And she saw an individual come in who, looked like a man with a wig on, and caught him peeping underneath her daughter's stall, because she had kind of heard that there was an individual going in there. So she was on guard. So you have women having to be on guard more than ever now because this radical agenda. Yes, there she is. And now she's actually becoming an activist about this issue, safe spaces for women and children, because it was so shocking. And when she went out and told the people at the front desk what happened, they agreed with the individual. I should backtrack. So when she said to the individual, like, get out of here, and yelled at him, that individual said, this is my right to be in here. So then she went and complained at the front desk, and they said, well, yeah, it is. If they identify that way, they can go in. So yeah, you're right. This is a matter of misogyny in the sense that it's, I'm going to take over everything. I'm going to do everything better than you. I'm going to look better than you, talk better than you. I'm going to take up all of your spaces, and you're not going to have anything that you can do if you're a woman about that. And that has to change.
I agree, Dre. It is clearly, I'm sorry again, it is the inmates running the asylum, because when you have the front desk staff saying, oh, no, he's got every right to be in there. We're all about transgendered rights, even when they eclipse biological female rights. And again, you look at the numbers, it makes no sense. There's I'm assuming at least 4 billion biological women on the planet, a scintilla of a fraction of a percent of men pretending to be women, and yet they're running the agenda. And it came up in the morning meeting, there's going to be a protest in Calgary today about these issues, and I'm sure those on the love trumps hate transgender side, they're going to get violent. And the reason why I say that, they know that the mayor and the council and even the police are on their side. So
exactly.
I can see them throwing a few haymakers because they are so emboldened by the authorities who should be shutting them down.
We're already seeing that. We saw that at the Coquitlam Public Library protests that I covered. But even if you backtrack a little bit more, a child protection activist, Chris Elston, known as Billboard Chris, who literally is a very peaceful protester. He just wears a sign and stands still for the most part. He got brutally assaulted by Antifa, LGBTQ defenders, and they broke his arm, and, nobody knows who they were. And these people are just getting off of this. And why wouldn't they? Especially in Calgary, what are we going to see now? You've got a pastor and, some of his friends or whatever praying in quiet, and they're getting charged. And just the other day, there was, it appeared to be a transgender woman assaulting someone at a protest and getting off scot-free while the cops smiled and smirked about it in Calgary.
Yeah, I saw that, and that's despicable. And when it comes, it's Chris, right? The sign fellow, right?
Yes, Chris Elston, yeah.
That's it.
In Montreal, yeah.
And I have interviewed him, and he's a good chap. And I think at one point he got his arm broken. And the prevailing mindset, Drea, is, as you said, he just goes there, he stands with his sign, he's not yelling at anybody, he's not catcalling, but the authorities consider that to be provocation, right? That, well, you got them angry, you started it. And so are we going back to the dark old days? I'm thinking when there'd be a rape trial in the courts, and suddenly the questions are, were you showing cleavage? What was your hemline like? It looked like you were asking for it. I mean, is that how far we've come, Drea, that we're going to the dark old days where we re-victimize the victim?
I hope not. I think we're turning a corner. It looks like we have some of the footage of Billboard Chris Elston being attacked. There's about 5-on-1. He's being brutally attacked, and yes, they broke his arm, all because he was wearing a sign that said children can't consent to puberty blockers. I mean, this is people like this who have this violence are going to say, we've got the green light. Yeah, let's go out to these protests and, let's handle business. And then they just go home and laugh. But I do think we are turning a leaf on this because these agendas and these incidents are becoming so just crazy, to the point that gays, lesbians, and bisexuals want to be departed from their community. More and more people are going to get over their cowardism and start speaking out. And so I have to believe that we will have change. And for those of you who are really interested about this and knowing where more protests are, we are covering those. I just recently covered one as well. And you can find out a lot of those reports at our website called keepkidsspacessafe.com. So I just want to throw that out there too. Should we should, and you're right.
The most gratifying thing, Drea, to wrap this assignment is the fact that, as I said, trending really highly today was the LGB without T. Yeah. Because if you're part of the L's and the G's and the B's. Believe me, the T's are not your friend. And finally, you've
The
woken
radical
up.
T's, I think.
But you know
Yeah,
what?
I welcome them. Come join. Come
Exactly.
join the normies. Come on, let's get stronger. So
Fantastic. Definitely a tipping point. But before we get back into Trudeau and Poilievre and our ongoing China crisis, why don't we take an ad break, and we'll see you folks on the other side of this ad. Thank you.
Have you checked out the fresh new swag we have at rebelnewsstore.com? Like this nifty resistance trucker sweater? We have warm, cozy sweaters, t-shirts, mugs, hats, phone cases, you name it. Everything to fit your freedom-loving needs, or maybe even trigger a liberal family member or friend. And for a limited time, you can use code TAMARA10 at checkout to save 10% off of your total order. So head on over to rebelnewsstore.com, check out all of our new designs, make some purchases, and use code TAMARA, that's TAMARA 10 at checkout for 10% off your order. Head on over, check it out.
Well, Drea, I'm pleased to say this just in, that according to an Abacus poll, almost 3/4 of Canadians believe there should be a public inquiry into China's election interference. It's just too bad that Blackface doesn't agree with that. He's more concerned with a special rapporteur, not just a garden variety de rigueur rapporteur, whatever the hell a rapporteur is, but he wants a special rapporteur. Maybe eventually it'll be an extra special rapporteur. I'm surprised the numbers aren't even higher, Drea. As we've discussed, there's a few things that define whether or not a country is sovereign. One is border control. Well, that's gone out the window with the Roxham Road disgrace, where illegal aliens are getting their suitcases hauled into Canada from Plattsburgh, New York by the Royal Canadian Mounted Bellhops. And now we have China increasingly getting its tentacles into the Canadian election. And first, Trudeau, when this story broke some 2.5 weeks ago, it was, if you're going to go after an Asian Canadian politician, you are a racist. Yeah, coming from blackface, that's pretty rich, isn't it?
I know.
And now it's, well, leave it up to me. I'll find a Canadian of a great reputation, beyond reproach, impeachable. He'll be my special rapporteur, and we'll take care of this behind closed doors. No, I'm sorry, not good enough. I think we need actually an RCMP investigation, Drea.
Oh, absolutely. I would love to see that. We need a proper investigation. The rapporteur is probably just going to be Justin in blackface himself. It's me. I'm impeachable. But, it just shows that they clearly have something to hide. And of course, Katie Telford, I forget what her exact position is, but she's at the head of all of this, right? And she still hasn't testified or agreed to testify. And I know that, there's some more information there. But Conservative MP Michael Cooper has been wanting to put that forward so that they could vote on that. And they're just stalling over it. So, I think this National Post article said it. What exactly do they have to hide that they're not doing this yet? Cooper says it's been now more than 14 hours over 4 days that the Liberal MPs on this committee have been filibustering for hours and hours and hours on a very simple motion to have the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, thank you, Katie Telford, testify before this committee. It really begs the question, what does the Prime Minister have to hide? And that's the truth. And that's what Canadians need to get to the bottom to. But of course, they have this cabal where it's just all in their hands. So, and I think that the Chief of Staff has testified in previous things in the past, right? So what's different here?
Well, you're right, but they're making the argument that it is inappropriate for a staffer to be hauled upon the car. Well, why? If this is about an attack on Canadian sovereignty, i.e. our election process, there's nothing outrageous about that. And if she has nothing to hide, then why not answer the questions? And by the way, let's face it, Drea, filibuster, that's just a fancy $3 word to describe a bullshit session. If you tuned in to watch the filibustering, it's absolutely pathetic. It's MPs getting up and reading verbatim newspaper articles. And then when they run out of that, they start reminiscing about their university days. It is just, blood boiling, this entire waste of time. And you asked it perfectly, what is making them so afraid to have Katie Telford take the stand and ask some very fair questions about what's going on? I'm beside myself in terms of this response. But to me, without having the evidence, the fact that they're so scared, the fact that they're filibustering this, the fact that she and Trudeau are so reluctant for her to take the stand, I think there's something there.
Oh, I think so too. And they're buying time this way too, right? So the more time that goes by, the more you have to cover your tracks, redact documents, whatever. So, I'm glad that the pressure's on. I'm glad that Canadians are aware of this issue, a lot of them anyways, and they're paying attention. I mean, this is a long time coming. It's nothing new. You have the Confucius Institutes, infiltrating our school system. You have the Belt and Road Initiative, even though we didn't sign on it. I've done reports on how it appears that we're participating in that anyways. And let's not forget the Conservative MPs who even called out before last year that they believe they had lost their seats due to this as well. So it's affecting a lot, and it needs to be sorted out before we have another election.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, all the apologists out there, the diehard Trudeau cultists who say, well, at the end of the day, it didn't affect the election. Well, I'm sorry, that's not good enough. The fact that it's occurring, the fact that according to ex-Conservative leader Erin O'Toole, 9 Conservatives lost their seats, you think that's okay? I mean, even if you added those 9 seats, it's still to the Conservative Party, it's still a Trudeau minority government. But I'm sorry, it's not okay. But, and the thing is, when I mentioned we need an investigation by the RCMP, I specified the police service, Drea, because I don't want the investigation to be done by the Chinese police. Yeah. It was revealed yesterday that another 2 Chinese police stations found in Montreal. That's in addition to the 3 in the Greater Toronto area. There are dozens around the world. Drea, I'm beginning to wonder, with Chinese police stations in our Great Dominion, as you mentioned, the Confucius Institute in the halls of education, with alleged Chinese interference in our election, with blackface professing his great admiration for the basic dictatorship of China. Are we still living in Canada right now? Is our capital still Ottawa, or is it Beijing?
Yeah, the running China joke is becoming all too true. Like, it's ridiculous. There's no excuse for what's happening. And this is not just happening to Canada, that's true. But I noticed Prime Minister Trudeau says that a lot, like when he's responding. He's like, it's not just Canada. Like, okay, what's your point? You don't get to just say just because it's happening there. You're just acknowledging that this is a huge issue. And yes, of course, even if one MP loses their seat or is even interfered, that's robbing the constituents in that riding of their right to elect, to come together and elect their representatives. So it's absolutely horrifying. And, with all of the concerns of election interference with the U.S., I mean, we've got our huge scandal right here.
Oh, no, and you're right. And evidently, the number of Chinese citizens that have been basically sent back to China thanks to these Chinese police, it's something in the neighborhood of more than 230,000 the world over, Drea.
Wow.
And people wonder,
I didn't know that.
It's astonishing. And the way it works, they're not weaponized. They're not wearing uniforms. They just go to people on their list that have a less than favorable view of the Chinese Communist Party. And basically, it's the old, we can do it the easy way or the hard way.
Yeah.
We suggest you get on a plane and get back to Beijing
Right.
tomorrow. Or, well, we know you have friends and family in China.
Yeah.
We'd hate for anything terrible to happen to them. It's coercion. I mean,
Yeah, I don't-
Oh, go
Go
ahead, Drea.
I was just going to say, I don't even think they need to say that. The citizens that I speak to, especially during COVID lockdowns, a lot of them that would come out and protest China during those times, they'd wear the mask, they'd wear the glasses, and they would let me know that, they just know if they show their face, their family's at risk. So if the regime comes to you knocking on your door, you know exactly what that means if you resist. And so that I didn't realize it was that amount of people. And isn't it under the guise of some sort of fraud, online fraud? They're saying you're suspected of online fraud, so you have to come back to be investigated. I mean, it's just such nonsense.
You're absolutely correct, Dre. As I understand it, the way this was sold to governments around the world, including ours, is that we're after internet and telecom fraudsters. We have good leads. We can take the burden off your law enforcement agencies. And incredibly, and I say incredibly because you're dealing with communist China.
Yeah.
Maybe there are ones and twos or dozens maybe of actual telecom fraudsters being rounded up. But
Right.
really, I think caught in that net are just people enjoying their right of free speech in a Western democracy and discovering to their shock and horror that across the pond, the censorious thugs of the Chinese Communist Party have come knocking on their door, doing a shakedown of them. This is despicable.
Imagine fleeing to another country to escape a communist regime, and you come to the land of the free, and that land allows that
Yes.
regime to come in and take you back. Oh my goodness, I can't even imagine.
And the same is happening in the Persian community here, Drea. You have Iranians fleeing the Islamo-Nazi regime of Iran. And I live in a city, Richmond Hill. I think the Persian minority is significant. I believe it's between 11 to 14%. So it is a significant amount. All the Persians I met, all the Persian businesses I patronized, the restaurants, fantastic people. They were fleeing the rubbish back home. And then suddenly you have bad actors being allowed into Canada, doing money laundering, people literally with blood on their hands. Oh, and forgive me, I almost forgot to mention, Drea, Majid Johari, the one Persian in Richmond Hill I have utter contempt for. He coincidentally happens to be the member of parliament for the riding of Richmond Hill. He's pro-Iranian regime. And
Surprise.
again, why do we seem, or when I say we, why does this liberal government seem to be getting, up close and comfortable with the bad people? The mullahs in the Iranian regime, the communists in China. It's such a grotesque insult to Canadians, law-abiding, tax-paying Canadians that want none of this rubbish.
Yeah, I don't know. We've got a few chats. I'm going to read those.
Okay.
If you're tuning in and you're not sure what that means, you can go to Rumble or Odyssey and chat with us live with a donation of $5 or more, which also supports the reports that we bring out to the public. So Wrong Way 54 donates $5. Thank you very much, and says, would it be possible for Rebel to interview a few refugees from Ukraine? I would like to know the truth about that, which is a very good question. I don't know, have we covered anything like that? I did interview a Ukrainian refugee, but it was sort of about something else. It wasn't about that. So I don't know, but that would be a good interview.
Well, you know what, Drea? I can tell you this. We're all about giving the other side of the story. So
Yeah.
I'd be open to that. So if our viewer knows of a Ukrainian refugee that has something that he'd like to say, send along the contacts to
I think it's
tips
rebeltips.com.
at rebelnews.com.
Or
Yes.
you can Google David's name or my name and Rebel News, and you'll probably find our email that way.
100%.
So we've got another donation from World's Worst Gamer. Oh, I'm sorry. It says the Liberals investigating themselves is not true justice. Absolutely. It's just, it's a cycle. I mean, it's hard not to lose hope about that. And we're seeing the delay anyways. There's no real push to do it correctly. So,
I mean, it's crazy, Dre. I mean, it's like a hockey game, and the referee never showed up, and one of the teams says, "Oh, one of our substitutes will be the ref wearing the same jersey as the other guys on the ice." No, I don't think that's going to work. Actually, right? As they say in Vegas, the fix is in.
Yeah, it's clown world. Clown world keeps spinning. Billy Howard says, Drea, please run for leadership of the BC Conservative Party. What do you say? Oh, you know what? That is a very big compliment, but I think I'm right where I'm supposed to be right now, giving the other side of the story. In BC, I am the BC Bureau Chief, so I got big shoes to fill. So, but thank you for that.
Well, Drea, I would endorse you 100%. And I know even the big boss man Ezra, he keeps pestering Sheila Gunn Reid to run for Senate in Alberta. She will have nothing of it. It's too bad because I think our colleague would make a fantastic senator. But then again, I kind of understand the reluctance. How people, the haters, that is, will try to dredge up everything and anything negative about you and constantly attack you and your family members. And maybe Sheila wants to maintain that privacy. Although, do you think there's any skeleton in Sheila's closet, Drea, that we don't know about?
I don't think so, but we're still in a world where you can get in trouble as a politician for what you retweeted, let alone what's on Sheila's Twitter or my Twitter.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if, anyways, my point is we got to get to a part where people are not scared to just stand in truth. It's ridiculous. Who cares if someone looks at what you put on social media if it's what you believe in, right?
Well, you know what? Once upon a time, that was the attitude to free speech. You could have a vigorous debate on pick an issue, and later you could go to the pub and have a pint and, still remain friendly. But now in this day and age of wokeism and political correctness and cancel culture, you are put in a ideological jail cell in which there is no parole. You have committed a thought crime. It really is Orwell's worst nightmare coming to fruition, Drea.
Yeah, we got another chat that just came in from Laird Kintyre. Hopefully I said that right. Don't think it's $5. Thank you very much. I was called a pedophile, pervert, and fake conservative and told I was uneaten? I'm sorry. This is embarrassing. I don't know. By rebels in live chat because I said I am conservative. I am a conservative trans woman. How is this right? So I think in the comments, people weren't nice to you in the comments. I think we did read a chat possibly from you last week, David, but no, it's not right to be bullied just because you're a conservative trans woman.
Yeah, but you know what? What I would say to Laird Kintyre is that if you're going on social media, you have to have a thick skin. I mean, a couple of years ago, Drea, there was I can't remember the name of the chatter, the commentator, but he would criticize every video I posted, and the preface would always be the same thing. Given that David Menzies is a convicted pedophile, I'm thinking, really? When did the trial happen?
Yeah, when did that happen?
Like, this is news to me, right? So you really have to have a thick skin. I don't think I called this individual any of those words. And, this is the dark side, I think, of the internet, Drea, is that what people in society, if they met somebody on the street, they would never say these harsh, cruel words that you do behind a keyboard to an anonymous profile. It's kind of like, in a way, it's like road rage, right? That, when someone is, entombed in an automobile, they're impersonal. It's not your, grade 3 teacher from yesteryear, and so you swear and you honk your horn and what have you. Whereas maybe if you knew who the person was in the vehicle, you would temper your response.
Well, and in every group, there's a few people who, just go rogue with that. You're not going to be able to hide that. But there's also, when you're online, there's bots. There's also people who are just trying to start stuff in the comments. So it might not even be, a fellow conservative talking to you that. And, you just got to wear your trans conservatism with pride. I'm a Black conservative. How else may I offend you? So just have that attitude on. If someone's offended because you're a trans conservative, oh, well, don't give them the time of day. But thanks for sharing, because it's important for us to talk about this anyway. So,
indeed. And have we caught up with our chat, Sarah, Drea?
I think we are caught up for now. Yeah.
Okay, let's take another quick ad break, and then we'll get back to let's say some more outrageous shenanigans the world over.
If you want to look good and shine like me, you can do so at our store. Go to ribbonnewsstore.com. On this website, you have so much different style to wear, as this one, my favorite one, Justin Castro. With my code Alexa10, you will have 10% off on your next purchase. So don't hesitate, go now and look so good like me.
Andrea, this just ties into what we were saying before the ad break. Elon Musk slamming Antifa violent protests. Oh, Antifa was involved with violence? Knock me down with a feather. After a Charlie Kirk talk. Why don't we show the video of Charlie Kirk? And of course, the de rigueur left-wing agitators that like to make a point, not with words or statements, but with their fists and their boots. Drea, where is the pepper spray and the mounted unit when you really need them? I think this comes down to this horrible belief by those on the left, which is this, and we've talked about this before. It's a phrase, punch a Nazi. Well, what is your definition of a Nazi? Is it somebody hell-bent on world conquest and carrying out a genocide? Oh, no. A Nazi is just somebody that has a different opinion than you. So therefore, instead of debating him or her, respond with violence, lethal if need be. These are thugs. These are hooligans. And it's amazing that we have to put up with this garbage when someone is just trying to deliver a speech in a Western democracy.
Absolutely. I thought you were going to say, when you were saying, where is the pepper spray? I thought you were going to say, where are the parents? Because that always comes to mind. A lot of these times, these are really young people. And I'm like, where is the parents? Where did they go wrong? Why are they doing this? Don't they have a job? I mean, out here, it says it was Antifa-like people and some of the articles I saw about this. But out here, the Antifa-like people are showing up at like everything. It's like, don't you guys have jobs? Or maybe that is their job, I guess. But you're right. This is, again, just an example. It's getting more and more common. And, Charlie Kirk is just the founder of a young conservative sort of group. I mean, that's what he's talking about. But of course, they're labeling it as some sort of far right hate. You can see the signs there. One of the signs said something about the LGBTQ community. I mean, they just come out with these signs and these words, and it's like a shield that protects them from getting in trouble. And
you know what?
Look what's happening.
Drea, you're 100% right. This is something that is a relative new and disturbing trend. I mean, Antifa has their own flag, by the way, but increasingly they don't bring those flags. They bring the rainbow flag. And it's almost as though it's like Superman's cape. It's impenetrable. It's invulnerable. And like under the auspices of the rainbow community, you cannot criticize these thugs. It's funny. Antifa is, of course, a contraction, anti and fascist. They're really just fa. They use all the telltale methods of fascism, including violence. They are what they claim to hate. Hate of. I'm getting mixed up with my words, but the disturbing thing on campus, Drea, is that increasingly this kind of coercion is paying off dividends for the far left violent agitators. And the university campus will say, oh, we're canceling such and such as speech. It has nothing to do with abridging freedom of speech or freedom of assembly. It's a safety issue. And it's a cost issue because the amount of cost we would need for security and off-duty police would be exorbitant. You know what, Drea, as much as I'm a fiscal conservative, this is something I support. Spend whatever you have to spend for the show to go on, because otherwise you are bending the knee to violent, censorious thugs. That's a horrible precedent.
It really is, and I'm glad that this particular show didn't get canceled. I'm not surprised that Charlie Kirk didn't go out there with his tail between his legs. But, I mean, you can understand why certain things do get canceled, but you have to say enough is enough, or else it's not going to stop. It's going to continue. And unfortunately, law enforcement, I mean, depending on the time, they're not doing much about it either. So what do? You just don't speak? Especially during a time where North America needs this voice more than ever, right? If we get completely drowned out, if common sense gets completely drowned out, we're really in trouble.
100%. Speaking of common sense or lack thereof, and I want to defer to you, Drea, because I
Thanks, David.
No. Oh, no. I apologize. That's not what I meant. I meant in terms of the topic of this next story. And speaking of Antifa, for that matter, because this comes from San Francisco, which is an Antifa hotbed, of course. San Francisco is floating the idea of reparations for black people, $5 million US per person. Drea, is there enough money in the San Francisco Treasury to follow through on that?
I'm moving to San Francisco, let me tell you.
Oh boy!
So nuts.
Unbelievable. What is this all about?
Where did they get that number, that amount? My goodness, that is insane. I mean, we've heard about, activists, asking for this. Did you say $5 million per person?
Per person.
Payments
Real
of
money.
$5 million to every eligible black adult. Well, what's an eligible black adult? How do you become ineligible? The elimination of personal debt and tax burdens. That's a lot of tax burdens and a lot of debt. Guaranteed annual incomes of at least $97,000 for 250 years, and homes in San Francisco for just $1 a family. Are you kidding me right now? Who wrote that? Like, who came up with that?
It's staggering. And the idea that this would be a municipal issue as opposed to a federal issue. And I mean, when I look at San Francisco, and I love that city. It is truly iconic. It has so many wonderful landmarks. But I'll tell you, in recent years, there are places in San Francisco you dare not go in terms of the homeless encampments. You would think that would be the prime directive of the San Francisco City Council, Drea, getting their streets to be cleaned up, because it is affecting tourism. It is increasingly becoming an unsafe place in so many areas. But no, they're going on some woke reparations plan. And, don't talk about a financial plan in which you have absolutely no means to, cover. I mean, I don't know how many black people would qualify for this, but when it's $5 million a head, I guess, is San Francisco trying to become insolvent, assuming it isn't already insolvent?
Yeah, that's exactly what would happen. I mean, obviously, I don't think this is going to pass, but it's just, it's shocking that someone is so far removed, or that people are so far removed that they actually put this forward and think that it could be an actual thing. You know, I'm not surprised if it had to be somewhere, it would be San Francisco, but I do really like visiting there.
Oh,
and
yeah.
like I said, maybe I should move there.
Yeah. Welcome to San Francisco. If you're black, you can become a millionaire overnight, and you don't even have to buy a lottery ticket.
$1 home. Can you imagine? Like, that would birth racism. Like that, if racism was on life support, that would bring it back. Like full speed. If just because you were black, you were getting all of that, my goodness. Oh, that would be such
And you know what? Where is the line drawn? I mean, this initiative, of course, would go back to the dark old days of slavery.
Right.
But there's a large Asian community in San Francisco, Japanese community. And remember, in World War II, there was Japanese internment camps. Do we expand the reparations for those of Japanese descent? And the list goes on, right? So where do you draw the line? But I mean, it just shows you how many people get involved in politics that they've never balanced, you know, a budget in their lives, and they continually drink out of the taxpayer trough. But this is crazy, and maybe it's, you know, Drea, it's all about virtue signaling. You know, some politicians saying, well, you know what, I went to bat for my black brothers and sisters. I tried to make them millionaires, you know, but the man wouldn't let me.
I know. The man. It's so ridiculous. The qualified black people.
Oh, my goodness.
We've got a couple more chats here. One
Excellent.
is from AMT60. Says, I used to donate more often, but since they put the amount to $5, which is US, it turns out to be $7 Canadian. I only do a paid chat once a week or every other week. Well, AMT60, I definitely recognize that you have supported us in many lives, so thank you very much for doing so. And we will definitely consider your feedback on that. So thanks for sharing. And
thank you. And by the way, I should say, Drea, that, you know, as I've often said, I think our way of raising money is the most honest way there is. Look at the mainstream media, folks. They are just taking a direct debit out of your bank account every 2 weeks, in effect. You're propping them up like the dark old days of Rogers Communications, negative option billing. Remember that? They suddenly put a bunch of TV stations on your subscription, and it was up to you to opt out of it. But it's even worse, Drea, because you can't even opt out of, funding the Toronto Star or the CBC.
Or funding drag queen events for kids. You can't opt out of that either.
100%. And you know what? We're trying to make this company function as best it can, and we don't receive a dime from the Trudeau Liberals, nor would we ever ask for it. So that's the reason why we have these perimeters, whether it's premium content or making a super chat.
Right. AMT60, thank you so much. And everybody else who donates. I was a Rebel donator before as well. I think it's so important to contribute that this voice is here. That's why, the Trudeaus of the world are trying so hard to smother us out. But it's really, you guys are the backbone of Rebel News. You make it all possible for everyone. For the vast majority who do not donate, they still access the information thanks to the small group of individuals who do support us financially. So thank you very much. And then Funas donates $5 and says, Trudeau needs to identify as a bird and finally flock off. Oh, that's a new t-shirt. Flock off. I like that.
Yeah, I'll settle for defeat in the next federal election, whenever that is, because, and by the way, it is truly the most anticipated speech I can think of that has to occur within the next 3 years. Well, maybe. And that is Trudeau's concession speech, because I think this man is a sociopath, a psychopath. Not that he's violent. I mean, just in terms of his worldview of things and how insular he is. Drea, can you imagine being delivered an electoral loss? What would this man say in his concession speech? I can't wait.
I think he would be smug. I hope we live to see the day of that speech. I hope he's not just going to keep getting in and in.
Maybe he'd lose it.
It's all about the coalition with the NDP. That's really the real issue here, is it not?
Well, it is. And in terms of Chinese interference, there's plenty of blame to go around, Drea, and a lot of it goes to Jagmeet Singh. When is this guy going to grow a set and say, and he's got a perfect out, Drea, which is when we propped up this government, we didn't know about this Chinese alleged interference in 2021 and 2019. Quite frankly, my fellow Canadians, this is not what we stand for. We believe in having fair elections. We believe in having a sovereign nation. And therefore, based on this new information, I pull my support. Oh, but Jagmeet can't do that, not yet. You see, he likes Armani suits, and he likes to wear that Rolex watch, and he likes to drive that BMW M3.
He likes his pension in the horizon.
And when is that pension kicking in? Let's see, 6 years, 6 plus 2019. I'm doing my grade 10 math here. Oh, 2025. He's got to hold out till 2025. Yeah, so Jagmeet, it's all about you, isn't it? Give me a break.
Exactly. We know what's up. So.
And is that
that's all the chats.
Okay. Well, we're almost 10 minutes past the hour, so thank you so much to everybody that tuned in, and thank you to all of you who gave a donation. Much appreciated, and thanks to Olivia behind the boards, and of course my co-host, the lovely and talented Drea Humphrey. I'll be back here tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I think with Sheila Gunn-Reid, assuming she's not in court. By that, I don't mean she's being charged with anything. She's covering court procedures. In the meantime, as always, stay safe and stay sane.
How concerned are you by recent polls that show that many Conservative supporters believe the electoral system isn't fair or even? Angus Reid's findings suggested that some feel the election was even stolen. And why do you think that Conservative supporters are more concerned about this than others?
Well, I think Justin Trudeau has inspired a lot of suspicion by his refusal to, one, answer questions about his knowledge of Beijing's interference to help him in two successive elections. Leaked CSIS and PCO documents now show that Beijing worked to help elect Justin Trudeau. That is an accepted fact. He doesn't even deny it. But he kept it hidden until courageous whistleblowers at CSIS released it for him. And now he refuses a public inquiry. I think Canadians of all political backgrounds are asking, what has Justin Trudeau got to hide? And furthermore, why hasn't he protected Chinese Canadians? Here in British Columbia, we know that Chinese Canadians came under intimidation by the People's Republic of China government. They were threatened. There were times when Conservative candidates would knock on a door and the person answering it would say, can we go into the backyard and leave our phones behind so that we can talk without being surveilled by the regime in Beijing? I think it is disgraceful that the Prime Minister knew this and did absolutely nothing. He kept it covered up, and to this day will not even tell us how much money the Liberal Party got in donations that were funneled, clandestine donations, to his party. So if we want to restore faith in our democracy, we have to answer the questions and bring in transparency so Canadians know what happened and we get direct action to make sure it never happens again. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.